Britain was once an island of trees. For 10,000 years they have shaped our landscapes. And we were once a woodland people. We managed our forests carefully, cutting and coppicing, and they thrived under our care. But forestry has changed. In the last century, plantations have replaced many of our woods. Others have been deemed unprofitable and abandoned. Can they survive in the 21st century? Writer and woodsman Rob Penn believes so.
Here we go.
And for the next year, he is taking over Strawberry Cottage Wood, 50 acres of unmanaged woodland in South Wales.
Oh my God, I feel like I'm going into the jungle.
Can he bring this forgotten forest back to life again? To be successful, Rob will work through the 4 seasons.
Bitter, bitterly cold.
He must bring the wood back to good health.
Look at them. They're magnificent creatures, aren't they?
And he needs it to produce an income.
Strawberry wood charcoal.
Can he use the ancient skills of the woodsman to find a modern role for our forests?
It is one of the most efficient fuels in the world.
It is a surprising fact that we are one of the least wooded countries in Europe. Forests cover only 13% of Britain, yet they are an iconic feature of our landscape. And in a few pockets of the country, they still shape the way we live. Nine years ago, Rob Penn moved with his family from the centre of London to the Black Mountains in southeast Wales. Local history is written in the woodlands here. It was once the centre of a thriving charcoal industry. Like many people moving from the city, Rob was drawn by the forests, and 2 years ago started helping out in a nearby wood, clearing old trees in return for firewood and kindling.
Someone once asked me why I spend so much time in the woods. And the answer I gave was because it's my Prozac. I feel a great sense of relief and calm coming to the woods. I make a living as a writer, and writers get this thing called writer's block. And there's only so much time you can spend sitting, staring at a blank page before you really need to get up and go and do something else. And my first port of call is here, the woods.
Under the green canopy, Rob has slowly been learning the ways of the woodsman.
Pile of brushwood, I'm going to leave that as a habitat for wildlife. Down here we've got some sticks, poles for making hurdles, pea sticks for the garden. A log there, that'll be turned into firewood to keep somebody's house warm. And here we've got the coppice hazel, which will be used to make charcoal. All of these things are the natural resources that provided the backbone of rural industries. Industries that sustained communities, not just in this area, but across Britain for centuries.
But what Rob is doing is in decline. Over 500,000 acres of our forest now lie abandoned. Is there still a place for woodsmen in modern Britain?
I've been working in the woods for a couple of years in a very amateurish way, but all that time I've been wondering if I took this more seriously, could I achieve something that had lasting consequences? Could I find a role for British woodlands in modern society? And this is not a nostalgic project. This is about looking at how the woodlands fit in to contemporary Britain. Today is a very exciting day. It's the first day of my woodland management project. And I'm on my way up to Joe's farm, and hopefully he is going to show me round the piece of wood that I'm going to take over. Morning, Joe.
Hi, Rob. Good to see you.
Good to see you. How you doing?
Yeah, not so bad.
Joe Binns is a neighbour and old friend of Rob's. Ranging up the hill behind his farm is Strawberry Cottage Wood, 50 acres of mixed broadleaf trees where nobody has worked for over half a century.
I think this is pretty well where your wood starts here. Rob, there's lots of fairly ancient hazel, like this one here, that's sort of leaning and about to fall over. You can see how the canopy, you know, there's so little light getting in here. The only thing that's surviving really are these rather exotic-looking ferns.
Yeah.
Joe and Rob have come to an agreement. For the next year, Rob will take over the running of this wood. Rob needs to make Strawberry Cottage Wood productive again. He must attract back flora and fauna that once existed here and harvest timber and fuel from the trees.
Oh my God, I feel like I'm going into the jungle. I'm just in Wales. What the hell's going on? Oh, for God's sake. We need a chainsaw in here. Oh my God.
What has happened in Strawberry Cottage Wood is all too common. It is very difficult to make money from small woods, and many landowners have simply left them to grow wild.
Nowadays, there's no financial incentive to clear woodland like this. It costs too much to employ people to work with a chainsaw all day. You're not going to get £100 worth of firewood out for a day's work. The oak trees would be worth a bit, but there's no way you'd ever get the timber out of here because it's too steep.
In the last 200 years, coal and oil have replaced wood as our main source of fuel. Steel and plastic have taken over our factories and homes, and the British Empire once provided an endless supply of other nations' timber. If Rob is to make Strawberry Cottage Wood work, he needs to find modern markets for our woodland products.
There's a sense of enchantment here, which is something very lovely to explore. It genuinely looks untouched. But the very exciting thing for me is that I'm going to spend a lot of time here. And it will be hard work. And it will be exhausting, and at times it will be maddening, probably. But there will always be the calm, the simple pleasure of spending a day in the woods. And that's something I look forward to enormously.
If Rob is to be successful, he needs guidance. Strawberry Cottage Wood is filled with standing dead trees that could fall at any moment.
Wyndham.
To help him tackle them, Rob has recruited his neighbour, Wyndham Morgan,
Nice to see you.
a man who has spent over half a century in the woods.
Well, you want an axe, but the most important tool you want is a chainsaw.
Very good. Have you got one?
I've got one in the barn.
Shall we have a look?
Okay.
Brilliant.
Wyndham is a legend in the area, a vast library of knowledge and experience.
Beware, because there is an old saying in the wood, nobody gets hurt with a big tree. It's always the little ones.
Is that right?
Because you take great care with a big tree.
Of course. Yeah.
So beware.
Yeah.
Always wear your safety helmet.
Yeah.
I have been hit on the head, and all I was left with was the ring around my head, and I never even had a headache. How about that?
Is that right?
So they do work.
They do work. Okay.
But the plastic helmet was
Smashed to pieces.
smashed all over the place.
Wow.
So they do work. There's loads and loads of woods about now need managing.
Yeah.
The woodland hasn't been managed.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be nice to see the woodland managed again. I'm glad you're going to have a go at it. Very pleased.
Great.
But yeah, take care, that's all I can say. It's not as easy as you think.
I'm sure it's not. And you'll come and give me a hand at certain points?
I'll come give you a hand.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
I'll carry the cider.
With Wyndham on board, Rob's first task is to tackle an old birch leaning dangerously over the path onto a hazel tree beneath it.
Well, he's only hanging on by a thread. How much he's supported by that up there, I don't really know.
Would this come down when we're taking the coppice down?
There's a possibility.
Oh, good-o. Okay.
But you just have to watch yourself because there's no other way.
He's off. He's flying you around. You're going to learn on the job, that's basically how I feel. And I hope we don't lose Wyndham, or indeed me, in the first real day of action in the woods. There's a very lovely quote. First the tool, then the book. You learn the skills of a woodsman through your own sweat. And that's, I think, probably a very wholesome approach to the whole project. You could immerse yourself in a library and read books for months, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to swing an axe at it.
There's only one way he's going to go, and that's straight down there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're on that side of him,
You'll be out of the way anyway.
you'll be out of the way.
Yeah.
Just put a very fine sink in there. Just take a V piece out.
Yeah.
Make sure the V meet completely.
Yeah, nicely, okay.
Don't undercut him.
Okay.
So as soon as he starts to go, I suggest you pull your saw out and stand back.
Yeah.
And if you can't get your saw out, leave your saw, stand back. Go on, knock him out. There we are. Couldn't have been better.
Thanks, Victor. There we go. Tree made safe. So this is the end of day one, proper day one, in the woods, and you know, at the most basic level, we seem to have made a big impact, which is great. You know, that big birch which was hanging there, that, you know, a big storm could have put that down on top of somebody working in the woods, namely me. And so the fact that that's down that's very good.
For the next 2 weeks, Wyndham and Rob clear the dead trees and make the woodlands safe. People have worked this way for thousands of years, and our oldest trees have been shaped by generations of woodsmen. To explore how we've managed them, Rob is heading east to one of Britain's largest and grandest forests. There have been trees in the Forest of Dean for over 8,000 years. Since Roman times, it has also been home to generations of woodsmen and miners. A small community still remains. Men like Peter Ralph and David Harvey.
All around us, this forest is the only place for me. So if you ever come to this here part of England, the forest twixt the Severn and the Wye, you will
Forester, as we call ourselves. I'm a Forester, born and bred. Born and bred, that is. Yeah, and I think we've got our own dialect and our own way of sort of living that is typical to the Forest of Dean.
In the 1920s, there were over 20,000 people working in the Forest of Dean. Miners, woodsmen and farmers harvested timber for fuel and construction. The way they managed the wood was vital not just for their own jobs, but for the survival of their communities.
When I walk into a wood like this, I instinctively think that it's a completely natural environment.
And you'll be completely mistaken, because it is a managed forest. Every tree in the forest, barring the odd weed trees like birch, have been planted at one time or another. Just after the Civil War, there were only 200 mature trees standing in the whole forest.
In the whole forest?
Yes, 27,000 acres of forest now, but there was only 200 mature trees. The rest of the forest was all coppice, and coppicing means you fell the tree, let the shoots come up from the stump, and the oaks here were planted in round about 1800-ish, mainly because Nelson wasn't very happy with the way the forest was being run at that time. And between 1808 and 1815, 11,000 acres of forest was cleared, planted with 30 million acorns, and that's how all this started.
It's an intriguing thing because, you know, not knowing much about it, you come somewhere like this and you presume that this is what it might have looked like 1,000 years ago. But of course that's not the case at all. It's changed significantly over that time.
Out of all recognition, it would have been more like a wild wood 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But now it looks a bit like a wild wood, but it's not.
It's not. It's managed by man.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Every piece of wood has been managed by man. And only very recently have we come to imagine the woodlands as wilderness. They're not. You know, some of them do look like wilderness, but they're really not. They are managed parts of the landscape, just as every part of the landscape is managed. And in the course of managing our woods for thousands of years, they have, in a sense, become dependent upon us. And that, you know, if you turn your back on that relationship, then that is to the detriment of the wood.
If Rob is going to be a force for good in Strawberry Cottage Wood, then he must learn how the woodland works.
More hazel. A bit of elder up there. Young oak. These are structures made by a parasitic wasp. Tiny little wasps called the ichneumon wasps. Or ichneumon wasps, I'm not sure which.
Gareth Ellis is the biodiversity expert for the Brecon Beacons National Park. Rob has invited him over to evaluate the ecosystem within the wood.
I guess the first question that I need answered is, you know, how, is this wood healthy?
Yeah, I mean, you have to really understand the basics of woodland ecology, which aren't too complicated.
That's good.
It really starts underneath our feet, down in the soil.
Yeah.
An undisturbed soil, which is full of things like bacteria and particularly fungi. It's fungi in the soil that recycle the nutrients from all the dead wood, the dead leaves that come down.
Yeah.
They break that down and allow the next generation of trees to bring them up from the soil.
Yeah, great.
So above that ground layer, we have what we would call a field layer, which is perhaps sort of your knees to your waist. It's the bracken, it's the bramble.
Yeah.
And above that, you've got an understory, which is either your small trees and all these coppice trees.
Yeah.
And then above that, you have the main canopy, the full-sized or fully grown trees, which are forming the big canopy above us. Yeah. So you have these stages, these levels. And a lot of woodland management is about manipulating those levels, and particularly manipulating the light that comes in.
Rob must bring light back onto the woodland floor if the young trees are to grow straight and tall.
Okay, Rob, here's a great example of how the trees are reacting to the amount of light they receive.
Yeah.
Look at this ash tree.
Oh my God.
Look at the shape of it.
So look at that there. So what's happened there?
Well, this tree, if we actually look behind us, we've got a very large, I mean, a huge piece of hazel coppice here.
Wow.
This is taking up all the light.
Yeah.
This little tree germinated down here and then found that the light wasn't coming in above it. The light was coming in over there. So this tree has been drawn towards the light, and you can see it's grown out.
That's extraordinary.
It's got in between the hazel here and the ash tree.
So it'd be good for an S-shaped bench, and that would be about it.
This is an example, perhaps, of how the trees grow.
Yeah.
as a reaction to their light. Remember, the management is often about just controlling that light levels.
Where light has fallen, new life has emerged, covering the forest floor.
Seeds could still be down under here, just awaiting a little bit of warmth and a little bit of light, which they're not going to get underneath this thick blanket of not only fresh bracken, but last year's dead bracken as well. You can see, you know, last year's growth and then sort of previous years. And there we go. See, now we're down to the soil. Look at that. There's not a thing growing. If you clear this, what you want to be able to do is give a chance for either the trees to germinate naturally, or you could try and help them along by maybe planting in here. But the first thing to do would be to get on top of this bracken. This ground should be full of things like birch seed and ash and maybe some oak in here as well.
By managing this wood, Rob can encourage the return of original species. But he also needs to create a working woodland, whereby timber and forest products can pay for the costs of conservation.
There's a lot of good timber in there. You know, it's got a nice straight growth here. It's had the opportunity to grow straight up for the light without being affected by too many things around it. This is a tree that you could potentially take out. It's got other trees around it. The removal of this won't affect the integrity of the woodland. Are you happy to take this sort of tree out?
I'd be terrified, actually, to be perfectly honest. I mean, oh my God, I wouldn't even know where to begin. It would be an exciting day.
Once this tree is down to a stump, this tree will grow again. This tree will coppice. So this stump will be part of your coppice. So maybe you might be back to the same tree in 15, 20 years and taking off 3 or 4 stems which have come back as the coppice growth.
When you manage a wood, you have to think in terms of centuries, not years or seasons. And that is difficult for us. Modern life changes very quickly. Technology plays an incredibly important part in that. And we've come to see change, immediate change, as the norm. And when you're managing a wood, you have to slow that down massively, because generations pass whilst one tree grows.
Taking on this project could immerse Rob in the wood for decades. Trees grow very slowly, and so he needs to plan his work not just for this year, but for future generations.
Spending time with Gareth was interesting because one of the important things that came out of it was the need for a plan. You know, woodland is, you know, it looks old, it looks rugged, it looks like it could withstand anything that man could throw at it, but of course that's not the case. It is actually quite sensitive. So that's why we're here. That's what we're going to try and do, get a good plan together. Back at the times of the great monastic houses in the sort of 14th century, the first people to really constructively and sustainably manage wood in these islands, you know, they drew maps. The map would show which bit of the wood would be under coppice, under what rotation cycle. As I said, it's a start point for a management plan, and that is what we will use to go forward. And I think better to have a plan than to just go in whirling with a chainsaw.
There are over 150 hazel trees in the top third of the wood. These trees can be cut for charcoal and firewood, allowing light back onto the forest floor. At the bottom, there are 70 large ash and oak trees. Taller trees can be felled for timber, and so give younger stems more sunlight. In the middle, there is a vast swathe of bracken and brambles. This is where seedlings can regenerate, and Rob can plant new saplings, but only after it has been cleared.
In In the last 10 days, autumn has undisputably arrived. The bracken is browned and it's gone over. The leaves have turned on the trees. In fact, a lot of them have already fallen. And what we're looking at here is an area which was probably clear-felled 50 years ago. Joe's not exactly sure. And the way we're going to turn this over and get rid of the bracken and brambles is we're going to introduce pigs.
To remove bracken and brambles involves destroying their root system. Pigs are masters at turning over the soil to dig them out. As far back as medieval times, the value of a wood was measured by the number of pigs kept within it.
To be honest, I know nothing about pigs. I've never known a pig in my life. But I have been told that you need to provide a minimum amount of comfort to keep a pig happy. And that's why I'm building a pig pen. I've never tried to think like a pig, but if I did now, I'd say that's probably not a bad spot for a pig. I think I'll be quite happy.
Joe and Rob are hoping to collect Tamworth pigs from a local breeder called Ray Harris. Despite years of country living, Rob has never encountered a live Tamworth before.
That's a pig. Is that a pig or is it a horse? Jesus, that's a big pig. Ray, lovely to meet you at last.
Thanks. Well, what do you think?
It's a big pig, isn't it?
It is, but wait till you see the boar.
The boar's in here?
Broader. Yeah, he's in there. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but she's just coming into season. So she is waiting for the boar, and the boar is waiting for her. So
how can that be a good thing?
They're normally very well behaved, but today he can sense her,
right?
She can sense him, and I think they're waiting
to be together.
There they are.
Can we go in? And
Yeah, certainly. Yeah,
Brilliant.
we can go in, but just be careful of your feet. And what you've got to be careful about is when you have the boar in there, that he can get quite jealous of you coming up to the sow.
Are you serious?
No, he could do. I have had a boar who actually just comes up and just gives you a little nudge. Well, they've got tusks, and the tusk went into the muscle there. Didn't break the skin or anything, because it was just a friendly little, you know, you keep away, she's mine. Not that I'm into that sort of thing anyway.
So the sow being in season was not in the script. So we've got a randy boar. He's very anxious to get together with the sow, and we've now got to try and load the pair of them into a trailer. What could possibly go right?
You've got to be patient.
You've got to be patient,
Yeah, don't get behind them and try and force them on or anything like that.
Let a pig take its time.
Yeah.
So we've got the sow. Jacqueline is loaded into our trailer, which is good news. I'm now going to try and get the boar in there with her, which is the bit where we can either lose both of them or we can end up with both in the same trailer.
Golden Ball and Jacqueline each weigh over 300 kilograms and can do serious damage to both Rob and the vehicles.
Come off, is she?
No, open the gate.
Yeah, got you. Oh my goodness me. Here it comes. Here it comes. Oh, I say, that's good stuff, yeah.
Okay, gate's closed.
Okay, that one through.
Go on, that's okay.
Hang on.
With the pigs loaded, they return to Joe's farm, where they still have 30 acres of planted woodland to cross.
I've never done this with a boar and a sow that's in season at the same time. So, yeah, exactly. So, I'm learning on this one as well. Come on. Come on, come on. And we start walking.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, big guy. Oh, come on.
It's going. They're coming. Look at them. They're magnificent creatures, aren't they? And so far, the pigs are being wholly obedient.
Come on.
Up that way, up your way.
Come on, come on. That's it, good girls. Good.
We're about to go live. Piece of grass to test whether or not this is actually working. It's working.
But as the pigs climb the hill, they're confronted by the fence.
Angle there. Oh, I don't like that.
So it's not a very good path going up that side.
No, it's okay. She's coming down over there. Just put the electric fence on, did you? They've hit the electric fence, and what they've actually done is they've lifted this rod out of the ground, and the one's actually gone through, and the one stayed in, and the other's gone through.
Jacqueline the sow has broken out of the pen. Whilst Ray goes off to find her, Rob must keep Golden Ball the boar in one place to prevent both pigs escaping.
I'm not quite sure where the boar is, but we're going to try and find him in this dense undergrowth somehow. He likes a bit of the sound of that. And then I'm going to entertain him with my best gags. Oh my God, here we go. Come on, come on!
It takes 3 hours of searching and herding before the two Tamworths are reunited.
Come on! Come on, big fella, up you come!
They're coming up, just keep clear now. Keep way out of the way.
With the pigs safely installed and the dead trees made safe, Rob's life in the woods is underway.
Gentlemen, good job.
Well, teamwork on it. I think that's where it all boils down to teamwork.
I'm not sure I played a particularly fundamental role, but I admired the work you did, Dan.
But autumn is drawing to a close, and winter, a woodsman's busiest season, is fast approaching. As the leaves begin to fall, Rob needs to prepare himself for the heavy work in the forest.